Hello wine lovers, Trophy Wine Hunter, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm pleased to bring you the Domaine Dujac 2014 Morey Saint Denis wine. So this winery, Domaine Dujac, is actually pretty well known in the Burgundy circles. It's, I think, kind of in the middle. It's not really expensive like DRC and Rousseau and Liwa, but it's not entry level either. So I think there's some room for it to grow in terms of its following. So it's a fairly young winery. It was started in 1967 by Jacques Seysses, and he learned his trade from Aubert de Villaine of DRC and Charles Rousseau Rousseau wines. He's also worked at Puisidor. So he purchased Domaine Graillet and renamed it Domaine Dujac in 1967. And at that time, it was only 5 hectares, and his original holdings was in Morey Saint Denis. Now it's expanded to about 12 hectares, but that's not a lot of vineyard. But that's in Burgundy, that's how it goes. Now he has now ceded control and management to his son, Jeremy Seysses, who has taken over the winemaking duties, and his wife, Diane, is in charge of the cellar. It's interesting to note that stylistically, the wine has had 2 phases. So when Jacques was in control and managing the wine and the winemaking duties between 1967 and 1999, he made sure that all his wines were 100% whole cluster pressed and fermented 100% in new oak. When his son Jeremy took over management of the winemaking duties in 1999, that style changed. So, and fairly significantly. So now some clusters are destemmed, and also new oak can be as little as 25% in some of the wines, because they produce very high-end Grand Cru wines. They also produce village wines. So in the Grand Cru wines, it is 100%. In some Premier Cru wines like this, it'll be down to 60-80%. In village wines, it might be down to 40% new oak. Let's talk a little bit about the area of Morey Saint Denis, which I'm not that familiar with. So it's kind of a nice go-between between the style of Gevrey-Chambertin and Chambon-Musigny. And if people have followed my channel, you know that I'm really into Chambon-Musigny. That's one of my areas of interest in terms of drinking this year, along with Barolo. So I'm very interested to try this wine and see how it compares. The bouquets are normally black fruits, like black currants or mulberry. There should be some pitted fruits. There might be some bramble, violets, licorice. And then often in older vintages, which I'm interested to see that will happen with this vintage, you'll get like wild game scents, leather, moss, maybe even truffles. So this is a Premier Cru wine. So this is basically the second level up. You have village wines, then you have Premier Cru sites, and then you have Grand Cru sites. So it's a pretty good quality wine. Because it doesn't have a specific vineyard on this means that it is a blend of different vineyards. And in this situation, it's a blend of 4 different vineyards that they own in Morey Saint Denis: Les Melons, Les Cherrières, Les Sorbes, and Les Rousseau. So it doesn't mean a lot to me because, and they, in their website, they go through it extensively what each brings to the wine. But for me, as kind of a inexperienced drinker of Morey Saint Denis, doesn't mean a lot to me. So we're just trying to, as an experience, just trying to get an overall feel of if I like Morey Saint Denis first before we kind of deep dive into it a little bit more. 2014 was not the best vintage in Burgundy. So it was okay. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great either. So it started off well, but then there was some, I think, weather issues in the middle. So a lot of producers actually blended their wines so that if they used to produce a lot of single vineyard wines, they would then only produce kind of a blended wine like this one. That's not the case with Dujac, because Dujac actually does this all the time. They probably don't have enough grapes to really produce a significant amount of wine for each of their different Premier Cru sites. So they've all put it into one, which is still not a lot of wine. I don't have the exact amount, but I would probably guess it's probably like under 500 cases of this wine. And I'll have that in the comments section. So here's the cork. It says bottled at Domaine Dujac, Morey Denis, Premier Cru 2014. And I'm not sure what this code means. If anyone knows, you should tell me. 0116. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe it means it's bottled at that date. The label, very simple. That must be their vineyard or their Chateau, 2014, Appellation Morey Denis, Premier Cru, Dujac. Back of the bottle, fairly simple, nothing to it. And then the alcohol content is 13.5%. Here's the wine. Dark, almost blackcurrant, like the flavor. You can see a little bit of brownness around the edges, so you can see a little bit of aging. It is almost a 9-year-old wine, so you can see a little bit of aging on this. I think it's really at its peak right now. It probably can go, I would say, another 5 to 8 years easily. Okay, this is where this video gets a little funny. I did video my tasting notes of this wine. Unfortunately, I had my camera on time lapse, and so it was like 3 minutes or 4 minutes into 30 seconds. So it's just like a fast speed and there's no sound. So anyways, I'm gonna go dub over the picture of this wine now. So I've actually had this wine twice. I had it in 2021. And at that time, I thought my notes were good structure. The oak dissipates from the initial aroma to perfume with cranberry and black plums, gamey and spicy, medium body. I had it 90 points. I thought actually it was just that was ready, and it was that was the score of the wine. But this time I opened it up, wow, I was so amazed by the aroma. It was great. It was so aromatic, and I'm so glad I waited. So in hindsight, it was probably just not ready. This time my notes were very aromatic out of the bottle. Black cherries, black currants, lilies, and roses. Very intense, dark fruit flavors and good balance. After aeration, black cherry with spice aromas like cardamom and cinnamon. Black cherry with good acidity and medium plus tannins. Very intense and bold flavors. A bit of moss and truffles on the aftertaste. Ready to drink, but will drink well for the next 5 to 8 years. I did not decant this wine. Just a simple decant or direct from the bottle is fine, but now it is actually, I think, performing at its peak. And when I drank it 2 years ago, I don't think it was quite there. I thought it was at its peak, but now that I have it had the ability to drink it again 2 years later, now I've kind of reached the peak. So my score on this wine, I think, was 93 points this time. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, happy drinking.